Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Keeping It Real Estate with Gavin and the lovely Nici. Good morning, Nici.
Good morning, Miss Gavin. How are you?
I'm fab. How are you?
I am doing great as well. I got to admit, I'm loving where our roller coaster weather's going, but we're creeping into some springtime, and I love it.
Still in the roller coaster.
Yes.
Well, as you've heard me say, there's no downtime in real estate, but maybe you're not, you're going to get in the market here as a buyer. You're doing all your due diligence right now. You're getting your pre-approval. You're interviewing agents. You're getting set up for when that right house shows up. But I think something that we need to revisit, and it's worth revisiting every season, is let's talk about home inspections. Because there was a time where, oh my goodness, we had a lot of competing offers on the market, and people were waiving home inspections. That's always going to be a personal choice. You're never going to hear me as an agent, and most of my colleagues are never going to tell anyone to waive a home inspection. But I think it's important to understand a little bit more about home inspections as we're kind of gearing up for the spring market, specifically as to how they relate in our region, the GLOW region, Genesee, Livingston, Orleans, and Wyoming counties. There are similarities between the counties and all of Western New York, and I think it's really important to don't assume that some inspections are traditional in some counties and they're not, or they're included. I think it's really important that we unpack what typically happens in our region.
Yeah, and aren't some kind of required in some counties as opposed to others, especially different locations? We're talking like rural and urban areas.
You got it. You hit the nail on the head, and we're going to talk about that, Nici, because I think people assume a lot, especially if they're coming from out of area or they haven't done a transaction in here in a long time. That's what I really want to talk about. But, we're talking about something when we decide to include a home inspection in our offer, we are talking about something that can potentially save buyers thousands of dollars and a lot of headaches later on. Again, you've got to be comfortable. So home inspections you should consider before buying a home as part of that process with your offer. That's something that's really important. So now before we get into the details, it is important to acknowledge the reality of today's market here in the GLOW region. Because as we've been reporting, we've got really low numbers.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So we're really experiencing some really low housing inventory at this time, but we are also experiencing very strong buyer competition. Mm-hmm. So because of that, when a property receives multiple offers, if it does, some buyers the buyer chooses to waive the home inspection contingency to make what they think in their mind makes their offer more competitive. So I want to be really clear about this. That is not something I typically recommend.
Period.
But it is something we do see happening in competitive situations. So today I want to talk about the inspections that are most common in our area, what they actually evaluate in a home inspection, and what buyers should realistically expect in this type of market. Okay?
Yeah, and real quick, I just wanted to ask, because I know it's one of those things, obviously, that may or may not be required. I get it. But when a bank is getting involved, is that something a bank ever may require to have done?
Good question. They will do an appraisal if somebody is working with a bank to borrow the money. Appraisal's related, but a little bit different to a home inspection.
Okay.
And some types of financing might require a well or septic inspection.
Okay.
Not as many as you think, but that's a great question.
Okay.
And that's why it's really important that buyers, as you're getting pre-qualified and you know what kind of loan option you're going with, you need to understand what the appraisal or home inspection requirements, if any, are required for that.
Okay.
So that's a great question. The most common inspection in real estate market in our area is the general home inspection. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times when we talk about home inspection, we're talking about the home inspection. And a home inspector, and again, full disclosure, I am not a home inspector. I can refer you to wonderful home inspectors, but been on enough home inspections to know that the home inspector typically evaluates the following things in a home inspection: the roof, the structure, the plumbing, the electrical systems, the heating and cooling systems, insulation, windows and doors, visible foundation conditions, appliances. Okay, those are the things they typically involve in a typical home inspection that, depending on the square footage, might take 2 to 2.5 hours. Okay, and this inspection gives buyers a general overview of the home's condition. But here's an important reality in today's market. Even when inspections are performed, buyers should not assume that sellers will complete costly repairs.
Right, exactly.
Don't assume.
This is for your own knowledge, really, what it is. And,
True.
And you know what you're getting into.
Yeah, it could be that after that home inspection, and that's another episode, you might be, as part of your negotiating on a contract, ask the seller for repairs, but do not assume that a seller will complete costly repairs.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In a seller's market, and that's really what we're experiencing right now due to low inventory, many sellers are already receiving multiple offers, right? So they may be less inclined to negotiate those significant repairs.
Right.
Or they may receive an offer that waives the home inspection. So it's not that they're not disclosing something or they're hiding something, but buyers have to put themselves in the shoes of the sellers, and sellers vice versa, that they might go the path of least resistance and go with that offer. So again, it's all about buyer confidence and comfort as to whether or not you include a home inspection in your offer. The purpose of the inspection often becomes education and risk awareness for the buyer, as you said, Nici. So not necessarily a full repair request, you know. I've never seen a home inspection report that's less than 20 pages long. So if you think you're going to use that as a strategy to go back to the seller and say, I want all these things done, probably not going to work out.
No.
Okay? Because sometimes it's like change the light bulb.
Exactly.
Okay? So if you can't handle that, maybe you shouldn't be buying a house.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's talk about inspections that are most common in the GLOW region, because many homes in our region are rural properties, as you mentioned, Nici, and aging. We have an aging inventory of homes, right? And most common inspections we see locally in our market are the home inspection, as I talked about, a well inspection if we are on well water.
Yep.
A septic inspection, if we have a septic system,
Yes.
and sometimes radon testing, okay?
Oh, that's starting to...
Sometimes radon, okay? Sometimes. So let's talk about well and septic inspections first and systems first. Many homes in Genesee, Livingston, Orleans, and Wyoming counties are not connected to municipal water or sewer, okay? Those rural opportunities. And sometimes they'll be on public water, but they're on septic.
Yep.
Or sometimes they're on septic, but, you know, public water. I mean, it can go both ways there.
Yep.
So a well inspection may evaluate the water flow rate, the water pressure, the pump functionality, if there's a well pump involved, and many times are, and the water quality. And water testing, which is typically done by the county health department, no matter what county we're talking about, most typically water testing for quality will include testing for bacteria, nitrates, and mineral levels, okay? So a lot of times, so specifically in Genesee County, if a buyer has included a well inspection as part of their offer and they've not specified that they want a well expert to come out and do that, the seller typically elects to work with the county health department to conduct that well assessment. Okay. So that's typically what happens. And we can get into details all day long, guys. If you have questions, you call me directly and I'll unpack this more in detail. But we just want to get through today what you typically see. Same thing with a septic inspection. If somebody is putting an offer on a home and they are requesting a septic inspection as part of their offer as a contingency, what does a septic inspection evaluate? The septic tank, the distribution box, the leach field from the septic system that's out in the yard, and the overall system's function. And these inspections are very common in our area, although they are not required in every county for transfer of title. Let me explain. So in Genesee and Orleans County, you can transfer title. You can sell a home and have it redeeded, etc., and never have a septic inspection because it's not required.
Oh, see, I thought that was in Genesee County. I didn't know that. Okay.
And it's a bit of an anomaly in our area because many assume, coming from Wyoming County, it's required. Yeah. Livingston County, it can be required. Orleans and Genesee County, not required. Huh. It's always important. Like every time I take a listing, I just double check with the health department again to be sure nothing has changed. But Genesee County, for certain, does not require a septic inspection for transfer of title. And people coming from out of area assume that it does. So if you're representing a buyer and the buyer doesn't know any better and they don't write that into their offer, it is not the seller's obligation to have that septic inspected.
Huh, interesting.
You got to know that stuff.
Yeah.
That's why working with a local professional makes all the difference, right?
Right.
So that's really important. So well and septic are not required in Genesee County. They are customary, but they're not required. So if you don't write that in the offer, buyers don't assume it's going to happen. okay? And a septic inspection with the Genesee County Health Department is going to be different than a septic inspection done by a contractor. So again, that's more to talk about offline about different types of well and septic inspections, but don't assume that it's automatically done in this county or in the Glow region in general, okay? Let's talk a little. We got a lot to unpack, and I know that's probably leaving a lot of you like, I want to know more. Call me and we'll talk about it. But let's talk about radon testing, because that is something that's prevalent in our area of the world, okay? And I don't see it a lot, but you do see radon tests done and other occasional inspections done in the Glow region.
Yeah.
So sometimes we see radon testing, and for those of you that don't know, radon is a naturally occurring gas that can accumulate in basements or lower levels of the home in general. And testing is really simple and relatively inexpensive. In Western New York, radon levels vary widely according to our area. So some buyers choose to test and others don't. They're fine with that. Again, level of comfort and what to expect. Other inspections might include pest inspections, like bats. Don't see it a lot.
Oh, yeah.
But it's a rare find that we have that in an inspection, maybe, or in an offer. Maybe somebody witnessed something while viewing the home, and so they've included that. Structural engineering evaluations. So that's going well beyond the typical home inspection that I described earlier. That's somebody actually coming to really get more invasive and really talk about the soundness of the home, the foundation. We see this a lot with manufactured homes and mobile homes.
Yep.
Is it anchored properly, et cetera? And then sometimes, rarely, I mostly see this after the home has been sold and maybe when a problem exists later on, years later, maybe you do a sewer scope inspection. But again, that's rarely done in our area as part of an offer. That might be done later, buyers, as you've been in the home for a while. You're noticing some backup. Again, we have an aging inventory of homes, aging plumbing systems throughout the cities. So maybe that's something that does happen. But when they do occur in our market, these are less common than the initial traditional home inspection. They are separate. And so if you're asking for those things, don't assume they're going to happen. They need to be written in your offer. And many times those types of evaluations I just mentioned happen later during ownership if concerns arise, like that sewer septic. So the reality of buying in our competitive market here, it's still competitive because inventory remains very limited in the Glow regions. Buyers often find themselves competing with multiple offers, and in those situations, some buyers choose to shorten the inspection timeline. So traditionally, you have like a week to get that inspection done, but if they want their offer to stand out, they'll try to get their home inspector there in the next 48 hours and shorten that timeline.
Okay.
Because if something goes awry and that buyer, remember, if you're putting a home inspection in your offer, it's a contingency. You can back out. And if you're trying to appeal to the seller, maybe you say, okay, I'll get it done in 48 hours. So if this doesn't work, you can get back on the market. Okay? Or you limit the inspection contingencies. Like maybe you're going to do a home inspection, but maybe you're not going to have the well and the septic inspected. Not what I recommend, but you might waive them entirely. Again, that's the buyer comfort. You have to have the conversation with your buyer's agent, and just don't assume anything ever. You have to operate not just on the basis of, I want to be competitive and I want to win. What if all of a sudden you end up with a home that you waived the septic inspection on and you realize after moving in that home that it's costly, needs to be replaced, it's about $50,000.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
so how bad did you really want that house? You have to have the guts and the resources to be able to withstand that. Some of you do, some of you don't, and rightfully so. So if a buyer does have the opportunity to perform inspections, that's great. I say take advantage of it. But it's also really important, buyers, to be realistic. Again, I know I'm sounding like I'm beating a dead horse here, but in today's market, buyers should not assume that sellers are going to be responsive to any, and certainly maybe large repair requests, especially if they have already received multiple offers. They'll just going to skip over yours and go to the next offer that's more favorable to them. So sometimes inspections are used primarily to help buyers understand what they're buying, what the future maintenance will look like, and what the potential cost will be. I often find that my buyers will say, okay, so in 5 years, I know I need to be looking at replacing the furnace. So now's my opportunity because it's okay according to the inspection right now, but the home inspector said I probably got 5 years on it. I need to start saving now.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask the seller to replace the furnace, but I need to be aware of what's coming, okay?
Nope, I love that.
So the goal of a home inspection or any inspection isn't to make a house perfect. There is no perfect house. The goal is to help buyers understand the condition, the systems within the home, and the potential long-term responsibilities of homeownership. And that's why it's a contingency. If you find that, oh, wow, I really love this house, but now I realize it's more than I'm willing to bite off, it's more than I can chew, then maybe this isn't the house for you, right? So in many cases, inspections are really simply helping buyers make informed decisions.
And honestly, I would recommend every time to do it just because in the long run, yes, you never, ever, ever fully know. It's so easy to get those glass eyes of excitement, the impulse. I'm getting this house. I can't wait. I don't care what's wrong with it. And to just know.
Yeah.
That sense of security.
The more you know, right?
Trust me, yeah.
I mean, sometimes the findings are minor, okay? And if you've never been part of a home inspection before, that's why you're really leaning on your agent who's endured several. Sometimes they bring a family member or a friend who's been through part of the process. There's not a house that you're not going to find something, but a lot of times the findings are minor, and sometimes they help buyers plan for that future maintenance and improvement.
Yes.
Or like, okay, day one when I move in here, I got to fix that.
Exactly.
Okay? So if you're preparing to buy a home in Batavia or anywhere in the Glow region, here's the takeaway you've got to hear, okay? If you have the opportunity to perform a home inspection, great. Do it. Take advantage of that opportunity and learn as much as possible about the home. You can't learn everything about that home when you went to the open house, when you saw the private showing with your agent. This is now when are you sure you're sure?
Yes.
That's the best way to say it. This is part of your due diligence period as a buyer. But also understand that the reality of today's market in the Glow region in Batavia, and you have to set reasonable expectations, especially if you think you're going to negotiate repairs later. It's probably not going to happen if you decide that you're going to ask the seller to replace the roof before closing. It's probably not going to happen, okay? It's not saying that it won't happen, but it might be unlikely. If it comes in an appraisal, that's a whole situation. And again, a home inspection is not an appraisal. We'll talk about appraisals another time. Okay, but if you have questions about buying or selling real estate in the Glow region in general, about home inspections that are typical, not typical, especially when we have those real properties here like septic systems, and all sorts of other things are happening, generators, solar power, all those things. Don't hesitate to reach out and give me a buzz. Gavin at Hunt Real Estate here in Batavia, 585-344-1321. I just think it's a good opportunity to reintroduce the topic of inspections as we're getting ready for the spring market so you can kind of know what to expect and really lean on the right agent to work with you through that process.
100%. I love it. I thank you. And, I got to be honest with you. I'm kind of excited for that appraisal episode because you kind of got me thinking about that and the comparison of and trying to remember what I went through during mine. And yeah, I'm very, very interested to hear because I always thought it was the same, more or less. So.
Right. And and again, we'll talk about this another time. I think we have in previous episodes. A lot of this lingo gets interchangeable and used, and they're not. They're separate things. Home inspection is different than an appraisal. You can have a private appraisal or a bank appraisal if you're borrowing the money. An assessment, and appraisal, and market value are all three different things as well, but related. So I hope I whet your palate for more episodes to come.
I love it. Well, as always, thank you so very much, Miss Gavin.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nici.
Absolutely. Certainly hope you have a wonderful weekend. Yes, we will be back. Thanks for tuning in right here on WBTA's
Keeping It Real.
Estate. All
Thanks,
right.
Nici.
We'll be back.